கண்ணுக்கு ஒளி கொடுத்தே. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Today, we have convened virtually to celebrate World Teachers' Day, a day when we pay homage to those who illuminate minds, inspire greatness, and pave the path to a brighter future. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. W.B. Yeats. October 5th, as declared by UNESCO, is World Teachers' Day, a day dedicated to recognizing the invaluable contributions of teachers and educators worldwide. World Teachers' Day is an occasion to reflect on the challenges faced by the educators and to unite in support of their mission. This year's theme, The Teachers We Need for Education We Want, the global imperative to reverse the teaching shortage. This theme encapsulates the pressing needs to address the worldwide shortage of teachers, a challenge that directly impacts the quality of education we can provide to our children and future generations. To set the tone for our event, I now request Mrs. Indra Raghukumar to deliver the welcome address and introduce our esteemed chief guest for today.
Good evening to one and all present in this webinar. It's my privilege to welcome the guest of the evening, Professor Edamana Prasad, Head TLC, Department of Chemistry, IITM. We are happy to have you, sir, amidst us and looking forward to your address. I also welcome our Chairman, Professor S.P. Dhanave, Secretary Sri Raman Kumar in their absentia, principals of all the schools, and teaching faculty of KVIIT, ESB Millennium, Velur International School, and other schools to this webinar. Once again, I welcome you all. It is my honor to introduce Professor Edamana Prasad to this gathering. Professor Edamana Prasad is currently working as a professor at the Department of Chemistry, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. He is the head of Teaching Learning Center at IIT Madras, where a group of faculty members from science and engineering departments, IIT Madras, has been actively participating in organizing various activities for improving the teaching learning process in the higher education sector of the country. During his leadership time, MHRD has sanctioned a project amounting 4.5 crores for TLC to augment its activities. Professor Prasad's research group work in the area of supramolecular self-assembly and photophysical aspects of small and assembled molecular systems. Please see the publication and research actions to understand the details of the research activities in the group. In 2002, he received Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm and gracious welcome. I am delighted to invite Professor Edamana Prasad to share his profound insights and wisdom with us.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity to interact with a lot of school teachers. I'm seeing some 69 numbers as of now on the occasion of World Teachers Day. More than what I can tell about teaching or learning, I also looking forward for a discussion or an interaction during this venue. You all have a lot of teaching experience, and probably let us make this occasion for a discussion kind of thing, not just like one-way traffic from me to you alone. Of course, I have a few things to tell you in this occasion. So let me again thank you for this opportunity. It's always good to have a discussion with the peers, colleagues, and reflect upon teaching learning process, and always introspect and also think how we can do these things in a better way for the betterment of both teachers and learners. So with these few words, let me just share the screen. One second. Are you able to see the slide?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So the title of the presentation is a bit lengthy, but because we have taken it from UNESCO, the way it is written there, we say teachers we need for the education we want, the global imperative to reverse the teacher shortage. So when I look at this title, what I see is there are essentially two parts. The first part is the teachers we need for the education we want. So that itself requires some explanation. What kind of teachers are we looking forward uh, towards education in 21st century? So we will discuss that part. Then the second part is addressing the teacher shortage. So that is the way the talk is arranged. There are two parts. The first part, we are going to pose this question: what are the attributes for 21st century teacher? What way say that this teacher is different from earlier or a traditional way of teaching students? When the time changes, obviously the students are changing, the content is changing, classroom environment is changing. But why only teacher is not changing? This question we need to address. Uh, of course, there are several platforms this question has been addressed, but it is worth to discuss this part. Second part is again, how do we address this shortage issue, and especially in Indian context. Worldwide, there are so many issues and so many parameters, but probably in India, how severe is the shortage of teachers? And in between part one, part two, what I am planning is to have a pause and then take some questions. Okay, let us see what are the expectations of today's teacher. Um, since we are living in a era where technology is touching its peak, the kind of expectations for teacher is also uh, growing beyond a boundary where we used to fix for teachers. On your left side, what you see is the three terminologies probably define the learning domains or learning process in its entirety. Uh, all theories of learning, if you take, they're all saying that a human being learns by three domains. One is called a cognitive domain, and another one is called an affective domain, and the third one is called a psychomotor domain. Many teachers, especially school teachers, are probably aware of these divisions of domains, but suppose there are curiosity, I'll just explain these the differences between these three domains in a very brief way. Cognition is obviously thoughts, thinking, or any learning that is connected with human brain processing. Most of our probably education system is heavily focused on cognition because we have a large number of classroom hours where teacher is trying to cognitively educate the students. Second one, affective, is more towards behavioral aspects. This is more important for high school teachers or school teachers in general than a teaching where I am actually doing higher education. This is more about behavioral aspects of a learner, or the appropriate behavior that a learner is supposed to have for facilitating the learning. And the third one is psychomotor. Psychomotor is essentially two words. Psycho is mind and motor is the neural network in the human body. So mind body connected learning, especially some of the sports or some of the art forms. Learning require the synchronous movement of both body and mind. So psychomotor is essential for such kind of learning. So essentially, these are the three domains through which people learn. So a teacher, 21st century teacher, the expectation is that how or what, to what extent are you an expert in these three domains to facilitate the learning process? One issue that probably teachers face now is a mere knowledge transfer is not expected from a teacher of today. right? Because it's available, plenty of available in the fingertips. So earlier times, probably some 30 years or 50 years back, the knowledge was with the teacher, but now the teacher is supposed to bring a big picture related to the subject knowledge. There are many information in pockets. How well you connect these things and then make a meaningful picture about your subject in your students. That's not an easy job. You should be a subject expert, and also you should know where and when your subject is relevant to the students in their life. So connecting these things and making a big picture is the one of the big challenges, or one of the big expectations of today's teacher. Again, as we said, just content providing is not what we are looking for in modern times in the classrooms, because content providing, there are alternate ways. How do we facilitate the content processing in the learner? So there is something called the data, but the other one is called data processing. The processing has to be done by the student, and how are you going to facilitate it? By telling the content is not going to be effective in processing. So that big question is coming to teachers. And in the affective domain, you are basically inviting or cultivating or inculcating an appropriate behavior from the learner. So here we have a serious problem, in the sense that human behavior being such a complex topic, very little research has been done what teachers can actually do in the classroom to inculcate an expected or an appropriate behavior. I put it appropriate in the sense that behavioral value system associated things are kind of changing, the times that we live in, and it's a process, and it gets evolved. So that's why I put appropriate in quotation, because it may not be same for all times. You're already seeing changes in the classrooms, the way that students behaviors, and some of the things that when we were students, those behavior were not accepted, are now kind of accepted already. And I don't think we should fight against it, but probably some of these things may change, and we need to probably regulate it. So what teacher is supposed to do to deal with such kind of, how to invite appropriate behavior in times? That is another big question or expectation for today's teacher. A lot of studies are there about the type of learners that you are dealing with. So the recent attribute that teachers do is pre-corona, post-corona. But even you remove corona from the picture, still today's learner has a lot of differences from the times when we were learners. So unless we kind of really learn this and then behave appropriately in classroom, there can be issues in teaching learning process. There can be bottlenecks. So how to involve the learner or present day learner in learning is another big challenge or big expectation. I'm putting expectation and challenges are together in such a way that unless you meet these challenges, the expectations about today's teacher is not going to be met. It's very important that now teaching is becoming inclusive in nature. The inclusive education is coming in a big way. In the sense, one of the repercussions about this inclusive education means you are becoming non-judgmental in your teaching learning process. You don't make a judgment about somebody's either cognitive performance or affective performance or psychomotor performance. Probably you need to have evaluation system or assessment system for learning, but leading that to make a personal judgment is now unwarranted, and it is unwelcome in many situations. So today's teacher, earlier days, if you remember, you go back to your own students' days, all teachers were judgmental, and they were saying that you are good in this, you are bad in this. So this kind of demarcations, very strong boundaries, are now becoming slowly evaporating. That's why I said there are changes in approaches from learners, from teachers, and I think changes are inevitable. So today's teachers are supposed to be non-judgmental in approach. One thing that you're seeing on the left side, slightly below these three things, is another major approach that probably the education system itself would like to move. Howard Gardner, many of you may be knowing him, he put forward this theory of multiple intelligences. As we said, majority of our education system is focusing on cognition, and in cognition, the rational mind is what we are basically harnessing. But what Gardner is saying that, rational thinking or critical thinking is one aspect of human brain capability, but there are other intelligences that a human being can possess, and whether our education system is addressing that. So sooner or later, the kind of assessment that we are doing, the kind of training that we are going to do, is going to be moving from simply cognition to the other domains of multiple intelligences. And probably teachers, the 21st century teacher needs to train himself or herself. How do I incorporate these multiple intelligences in my classroom teaching? So how do I teach math if a person is kinesthetically intelligent? How do I teach chemistry to a person who write music, who likes music? His intelligence is on rhythmic part of the body and mind. So these are all questions that probably once this inclusive education comes, then we probably need to address these questions. At some point, probably teachers thought these questions are absurd, but now it is becoming more and more real, and there is a need for addressing these questions. When we come to the teacher preparedness part, the immediate need for today's teacher is probably, since education is still 90% is cognitive in nature, their teacher should have some idea about the intended learning in a topic. So the terminology that normally people use is learning outcome or learning objective. There are certain words that we describe, but essentially it is, when I'm teaching a topic, what is the intended learning in that? If we are not clear about that, then I think the teaching becomes less and less effective in nature. So deciding a kind of a cognitive load for your subject a priori before we go to the class, and then also design what is that expected learning, will help the modern teacher to educate a kind of learners, which we always say that, generation C or new generation learners. So what is the intended learning in terms of observable action by the learner? So this question is coming more and more important in terms of the teaching learning that normally we define. Earlier, we used to de-link between teaching and learning. So teacher goes to the classroom, teacher delivers, and teacher comes back. So teacher say that, no, teaching is done. Now learning is their job. Now that picture is changing. 21st century definition for teaching is, unless learning is done, teaching is not done. So you cannot de-link from learning from teaching. In other words, the teacher is supposed to tell in advance what kind of skill set, what kind of observable skill set the learners are supposed to exhibit as a result of my teaching. So clarity on that final intended achievement in terms of students' action is important. That exercise is called designing outcomes. So that itself is slightly complex. In a normal talk, I don't think that training is possible, but there are workshops that people really work on how to achieve this target. Teacher is supposed to tell what is the cognitive level my subject is targeted or the topic is targeted. You can take any topic to any cognitive level. So there are taxonomies of learning, and many of you are many of you know the famous taxonomy of Bloom's. Like that, there are other taxonomies available. So whichever taxonomy, whichever classification of learning you are using, which level of cognition are you targeting? This also teacher is supposed to tell in advance. And what relevant information should be provided by the teacher? Teacher telling all the information, student listening to that information is an old school. That was probably created with a purpose when our country was under the rule of British. they want somebody who follow instruction. So the methodical way, one person tell others note down and follow, that procedure is, that's an old school concept. So now we are moving, we've been in an independent country. We don't only want, people who just follow instruction. We want creative thinking, we want critical thinking. So how do we actually generate these things? If I tell A to Z on a topic to a student, then what way students become creative? So there is a line that teachers should draw. Okay, this much I will tell, and the rest they have to work it out. So unless teacher gets the clarity that, I will stop here, the next the student is going to do. No need to tell everything. If you tell everything, you're actually not helping, you're hindering the learning. So these are the, where is the gap that I need to put so that you invoke the thinking process in students. So when we tell our expectations in terms of learning outcomes, one of the major challenges that I see in my workshops about, higher classes of teachers in school or in higher education, every teacher will come and tell me that I want my students to understand the basic concepts. This is something like what do you call a teacher's birthright. Teachers will tell that there is no negotiation on this part. I want my students to understand the basic concepts. Now, it's a good intention. I would appreciate that, every teacher should go with that mindset. But the issue is that word understand is the problem. So when I tell my students that, I want you to understand the basic concepts, what exactly you mean by the word understand? So this creates hell lot of a confusion in learners. What exactly we mean by understand? And if you yourself try to explain now what do you mean by understand, you can easily see that, well, it's an online platform, so I cannot show you. But if it's an offline, I can ask 10 people, there will be 11 explanations about what do you mean by understand. So this is one major issue probably we need to address when we try to write the learning objectives or learning outcome. I've seen the NCERT books or any state government schools, when they write the learning objectives, they use words which are broad, vague, non-specific. So it's very important that when we write learning objectives or learning outcomes, which are the essentially intended learning in a topic, we need to use words which are very clear, which are very specific. So broad words for describing intended learning is not at all useful. Clarity on the learning to be achieved is important for teaching. So when you use broad words or kind of ambiguous words, then obviously whether the learning is achieved or not, we cannot verify. How do I verify whether somebody is understanding the concept? Then you will say that, maybe the student will explain this concept, or the student will solve a problem. There are multiple actions that we are expecting from a student to certify that they understand or not. So when we say understand, it is not just one action. It's a culmination. It's a bundle of action that we are expecting. So unless we tell it clearly, these things are meant by understand, we may not be able to communicate to the students effectively. The clarity will be missing. So this, what you see on your left side is essentially the Bloom's taxonomy that all of you are familiar. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create, and this comes in every workshop that I do. Just one slide before I said understand is a bad word, but then Bloom's used that word to mention a level. But we got to deal with that. At least Bloom has clearly mentioned what he meant by understand. But if you are using that word for writing objectives, it is always better to clarify what exactly you mean by understand, because what Bloom meant and what you meant may or may not be the same. In any case, the expected learning level and the assessment level should be the same. The one major problem that today's teacher is probably doing is they put the expectations in probably an apply level and then do the assessment in analyze level. That means it's as equivalent as you are training somebody to run 100-meter on every day, and on the exam day you ask them to do a high jump or a pole vault. That is highly unethical, right? You are not preparing for something, but you are asking them to do finally verify that. So it's very important that the learning level that you are targeting. You can target any of these are all levels of learning. These are all human faculty, brain faculty. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create. You can target any of these levels, but you target one level, you do assessment on that level. That's very important. And many teachers are not very clear about how these levels are getting differentiated. What exactly the feature of an apply level learning? What exactly the difference between analyze level and apply level? What do you mean by a level called evaluate? So unless we get clarity on this, these are all expected from teacher, 21st century teachers' expectations. Clarity on the how do we differentiate the levels of learning, so that you can go with certainty what is to be achieved in terms of learning in cognitive. This can be done in other domains also, but we are focusing on cognition because as of now, that is where education system is focusing. Another good, normal question that teachers ask is, where is this critical thinking coming in this partition? Critical thinking means thinking with reason, a rational approach, cross-checking, verifying the thinking process. So mostly this is coming in the higher order levels, which are called analyze, evaluate, create. So these levels are targeted when we say I'm actually helping the student in critical thinking. Now, another major issue that suppose teachers are focusing on these higher levels, evaluate or create, we need to realize that there is no single answer you can expect. There can be many correct answers. So when you say somebody, you want them to think creatively, you cannot say that you have to think creatively only this way. So there are multiple ways of giving you answers, and you see that all of them may be correct, or there's a degree of correctness in all of them. So then the question is, how do you evaluate the answers in these levels? These are all clarity that teachers need to get before teacher goes to the classroom. I'm talking about 21st century teacher, right? So there's a lot of homework that teachers are supposed to do before they step into the classroom. Forget about, in classroom, we need to do a hell lot of other things, but even before that, teacher preparedness part itself, a lot to be done. One problem is, this word felicitation, sorry, it's not felicitate, facilitate. There's a typo there. Facilitation is overused term. But many teachers, they are not really prepared how to facilitate things. Facilitation is many other things that telling them in a simple language is facilitating learning. It is not at all. Facilitation is you tell less, students do more. That is called facilitation, right? So how to do things, that is what we need to teach them, not make them listen to you all the class time. For that, probably we need to have an activity-oriented class. When I say activity, it's not physical activity, not running around. Sitting there itself, but thinking activities, right? So how do we design our class with thinking activities where they do the thinking, you give the feedback. So allow learners to commit mistakes. When you ask them to do things, obviously they may not be doing things in a perfect. Don't tell them that we are not even looking for perfection. Let them make mistakes. See, one of the problem, many students get this feel that if they make mistakes, it's something like a unpardonable thing in a classroom. This image has to change. Teachers should tell them that it is okay to make mistakes in classroom. Don't make mistakes in the exam hall. So let them make all the mistakes in the classroom so that they can at least don't do mistakes in the exam hall. Right now, the reverse is going on. That we try to ensure that they don't do any mistake in classroom, but all the mistakes they're doing in the exam hall. Reverse it. Another preparedness, teacher preparedness probably is a teaching methodology called scaffolding. Scaffolding is essentially, we mentioned briefly before, to what extent I need to tell, where should I stop, and ask the students to complete that task. So tell a few things so that the learners can start doing it, but don't give full information. So that then they start doing things under your guidance. That is how learning happens, or that is how the learning is supposed to happen. Then they're processing the content, and you are only monitoring and giving feedback. You're guiding. So when they do this in an appropriate cognitive challenge, they feel that they are in the flow. Flow means they forget about the time and then they sink in what they are doing. That kind of learner involvement is what we are looking for at 21st century classroom. But most of the classroom, because learners are not cognitively involved, you see students are, they put their head on the desk and then they are yawning, they are sleeping, they are daydreaming, because they are not doing the intellectual heavy lifting. Everything is done by the teacher. So this aspect we need to somehow change. These are all 21st century expectations. Another major part, we are not training them for teamwork. It has to start from schools. I mean, there are projects, there are sports where they do things together, but how about cognition? Learning also they can do in teams. So let them see one of the issues probably is the classroom design itself. These designs are independent designs, right? So the rows and columns, benches and desks. One person instruct, others note down. There is no teamwork there, because at that time there was no teamwork needed. But right now, if you want teamwork, probably you need to allow them to have some kind of a disturbance in the classroom, let them talk to each other. Some noise will be generated. These are all unconventional thoughts. Teachers don't like students making noise in the classroom, especially in schools. We'll say, hush, don't make noise. But if it is for learning, no problem. Let them make a bit of noise. Because we are developing a set of human beings where when they go out from the education institute, they have to deal with people. They have to, any workplace is a collaborative work. Life is all about collaboration. So unless we train them for that, 21st century teacher is not meeting the expectations. Why I write 3 times formative assessment is because of its importance. A conventional teacher is more focusing on summative assessment, final assessment. But 21st century teacher should focus on formative assessment. So in terms of learning, how much they are ready when you are teaching, or every class, when the class is progressing, how much they are learning. We should not wait an exam to happen to test that. So this is something that we need to focus. Learning is more from quality feedback, not from examples. Many teachers, all of us think that, when we give an example, in fact, every other sentence that we tell in a class is for example. If you just go back and see, we make a statement and then say, for example, because we think examples are the best way to, teach them. But there are many philosophy or teachers teaching philosophy or quotable quotes that you look at. Great educators told that learning is more from your feedback, not from examples. So your feedback is called formative assessment. Ask them to do something, and when they do it partially correctly, the kind of feedback that you give is the one that makes them learn better. Another important, very important aspect is meta learning. Right now, we are completely, ignoring this aspect of meta learning. Meta learning is meta learning or meta thinking is thinking about thinking. So, enabling a person to be reflective in nature. So any action that we do is a result of some thought process. So, but if you can regulate your thought process, there is nothing like that, because your action will be automatically get regulated. So what are you thinking? If you can ask yourself and then get clarity on that, your actions will be automatically regulated. That's called meta learning or meta thinking. A 21st century teacher should be able to train learners for meta learning for a better society to build. So formative assessment should be much higher than summative assessment. There should be assessment plans, and you can even motivate learners. There are several studies which tells that if you tell the assessment plans, that itself can motivate learners. How we are going to assess their learning. If you tell that roadmap in advance, that motivates learners. So you put the assessment plan in a rubric fashion. That means with table, rows and column, you say that, yeah, I'm going to check this first, then check this, and I want you to do this, and then tell this table, give this table in advance. People or the students tend to do it more perfectly. So assessment can be actually used for motivating students' learning. So there are many other aspects of 21st century teacher, but let me pause it now here for your questions from the part 1, which is what kind of teacher are we looking for 21st century? Hello? Yeah. You can even write in the chat box if you want. Or you can unmute and then. Okay, one question.
Good evening, sir. This is Vijayalakshmi.
Yeah. Good evening, madam. Yeah, please go ahead.
Good evening. Could you elaborate on meta learning, sir? How practically how we can achieve that? Metacognition, to know what you know,
Right.
and
Exactly.
to learn what you. I just want to know, as teachers, how are we going to practically implement it in the classrooms?
Okay. One simple technique that we do in our workshop is, there is something called minute card. That means at the end of every class, if the teacher can ask the students to write 2 things. One is most clear aspect in the class, most unclear aspect in the class. These 2 things, if you can ask them to write, essentially what we are asking them is to go back and then reinforce or reflect upon what they thought or what they thought during the class. So here we are forcing them to do a meta thinking process. You're asking them to reflect upon their thought process they experienced in the class. So this simple exercise is very powerful. There are a lot of research on this. It's called minute card, and it's very easy. No infrastructure needed. A small piece of paper, a teacher can give them. If the class strength is very high, we can ask them per bench. Or if the class strength is some 10, 15, 20, we can ask per person. We can give a small piece of paper, ask them to write these 2 things. Most clear, most unclear.
Something like an exit card.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. But then the question is important, because there will be always many things will be clear, many things will be partially clear, many things will be unclear. Now they have to prioritize. We are asking most clear and most unclear. So in this process, they will start reflecting upon their own thought process, that experience, which is called meta learning.
Okay. So that will help the teacher to a kind of reinforce or reteach, revise, review in the next subsequent classes.
Exactly. That is an additional gain that teacher is getting. It is basically reinforcing the learning. But in this process, learner is also getting benefited on the meta learning.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
There's a question in the chat box. With the limited time, how we can include all this in the classroom? Yes. So Lakshmi, that's a standard question that we always get in our workshop. Well, I mean, there is no magic here, what probably we can do is we need to design a classroom where when the students do some thinking activity, by that activity, they actually learn what they are supposed to learn from your lecture. So you are designing such kind of activity which can replace your lecture. The class time is same 50 minutes or 1 hour. There is no change for the class time. What we are doing is we are cutting a part of your lecture and then fill it with an activity which is equivalent. So that is there is no other magic. Another question is, okay, I mean, she's explaining the kind of syllabus coverage and also limited time. Is there an effective way to ensure scaffolding, monitor children individually just from your, yeah, so this is what I normally do in the classroom is some of these activities should be replacing my lecture. That way, if we can define, we are not taking time out of the normal routine. Okay. We have other questions that we received earlier. So, Sadish sir, do we address that
Yes, sir.
now? Right. So, we have a bunch of questions. One question is how to improve the slow learner. See, slow learner probably is a misnomer in the sense that what appeared to be a slow learning is because of less preparedness. That is manifested as slow learning. So the person is not prepared to do that activity, so he basically or she basically gets stuck. So what you should as a teacher do is help that preparedness part. More assignments, more work, or see where she gets stuck or where he gets stuck. So essentially, this slow learner needs a lot of preparedness part. That the problem is the preparedness part. Some background information, some background concept, somewhere she is getting stuck. So as a teacher, you should clarify where actually the problem is. And once you remove that bottleneck, then the slow learner will be, it's a slow process. There's no magic again. You need to but ask probably some other questions, some prior or a pre-learning question, see where the problem is. Like that, you need to unravel that. It's in a kind of a several layer issue. You slowly open up with several other questions through which you prepare that person to do this task. Otherwise, you make this embedded task into many small tasks. That is the way we need to deal with the slow learners. It may be needed to do outside the classroom, obviously. So another question is, are we supposed to satisfy the students' exam point of view teaching or explain all related topics which are only supplementary and will not be questioned at all in their exam, but useful in knowledge acquisition? How to strike a balance between the two? Constraint of time has always been a difficulty to overcome. Suggestions on this area, please. So, do we need to teach for test? So in America, they say teach for test is a bad idea. But the counter argument is teach for the test is not a bad idea if your test is good. So one suggestion here is you are seeing it as two different aspects. I want you to, merge it. Why are we saying that there is something called exam, which is not serious, but there is something which is called good learning? Why don't you make the exam for the good learning? So the problem is solved. I'm talking about maybe beyond the purview of a particular teacher, but I'm talking about a way out of this dichotomy. Our exams should be testing what you want them to learn. Assessment is for learning verification. So what do you think as good education, that qualities are the one that is to be tested in an examination. So why we say that there is something exam which we don't really mind, but I want them to have a very good education. That I don't consider that as two things. There should be a way to merge them. Then this issue will be solved. That essentially means we need to work on the assessment part. What are the effects of teacher shortage? How teacher shortage are affecting K-12 schools across the country? So we have a few slides to run. So we'll just go back there and then address this. The society has a lot of demands. Is a teacher able to perform her roles as a facilitator with utmost satisfaction to meet out the requirement of the learners in the society? Well, I mean, see, it's an evolving process. We try our level best. We try to become more and more effective in our job. There is nothing like perfection, right? It's only an evolving approach. Is it always possible to start a concept with the problem solving? Yes, very much. And I would encourage you to start understand the concept through applying it, not by just rote learning. Don't give the definitions first. Ask them to apply those information in some context. Let them struggle. See, that's how, if you look at observe a child, they come to an inference through an experience, not the other way. Only in school, they get the definition first and then they apply it. If you look at the normal learning process of a human being, they try to see many observations, many experiences, and then finally narrow down to a conclusion. That is how actually learning process is. So it is definitely doable through problem solving. How, as a teacher, I can make more interesting and attractive teaching methodology during the class? There are so many teaching methods. Obviously, we did not touch upon that topic. So incorporating multiple teaching methods, essentially pluralize your teaching methods, is one way to make your teaching attractive. Don't become predictable. You change the strategies every day. The class becomes interesting. What steps need to be taken to change the attitude of adolescents in the present scenario? Human behavior is complex. There is no ready-made answers for this, but a lot of research studies indicate that behavior is reciprocal in nature. In the sense, the way you behave, most of the students tend to reflect upon that and then they behave back. If you are, kind of hostile, then they also tend to be like that. So behavior is contagious. Again, these are all work in kind of, error bars, but there is a lot that teacher can do to regulate the behavior of a student. When you appear to be calm and composed on the platform, many of these jumping students will also cool down. Next question, taking care of self, both physical, mentally, while working as a teacher. Taking care of self, both physically and mentally. There is a book by, I think it is Stephen McCoy, The 7 Principles of Becoming an Effective Personality. I recommend that book for teachers. That book basically talks about the difference between important things and urgent things. For many of us, urgent things are important because it's urgent. But Stephen McCoy says they are not. So if you can differentiate urgent things from important things, probably that is one way to take care of your personal life and professional life. Why we can't make all the students score equal based on their skills? Not possible. Human skills are a distribution and you have a limited time to deal with them. So there will be always distribution. But your role is to help them from where they are standing now. So that itself is a huge help. Don't expect everybody should get an A grade. Will semester system make students stress-free or will it increase? See, students are always stressed because learning is not an easy job. Learning is a difficult job. So whether you semester system or year-wise, there will be stress for learners. You can reduce the stress. Some of the ways to reduce stress is, as I said, you give the assessment plan in proper. You make your learning objective and assessment equal. Tell the learning object clearly. These are all steps to reduce their stress actually. Will online certificate be awarded after? Okay, that's a question to the coordinator. How do you handle students in this age of social media? Yeah, you should be tech savvy to a certain extent. Otherwise, they will look at you like a alien from another planet. How to manage workload with our teaching passion? My sincere request is, passion is good, but the problem with the passion is you will not do self correction. I have a problem with the passionate teaching. Passionate teacher is well, I mean, it's always say you need to have a passion for what you do, but that's correct. But more, what we need is expertise. There's a difference between passion and expertise. So we need to always be asking ourselves, are we actually developing the expertise? Passion sometimes mask expertise development, because just because you are passionate, you just want to do things. You're not checking whether it is becoming effective or not. Looking forward, methods, how to be calm in stressed situation. If you are using the past tense, stressed, then there is no way to become calm. Any calmness should be come before getting stressed. So one way probably is, as we said, meta learning will help you stress free. Meta learning is another coin of meditation kind of thing. You becoming more reflective in mind will help you to stress free, because you realize, okay, I'm going in the wrong direction, switch off. So becoming reflective is one. Well, these are all easier said than done, because we can say many things. If you want to put in practice, you need a lot of training by yourself, right? So it's not that easy, but yeah. So these are the questions. Now we have very little time. Let me just go back to the slides. I will. Okay, so let us see the second part, which is basically data. So it doesn't. So they say there is a heavy teacher shortage in a global picture. UNESCO is actually worried. I have been reading many articles, so it looks like they're really going in a panic mode. They say that they need for an additional 24.4 million teachers. That means 1 million is 10 lakhs, so 244 lakhs teachers for primary education, and another 400 lakh plus teachers for secondary education, to achieve universal basic education by 2030. So these numbers are really huge. So in the global scenario, the picture is worse. Some statistics from US, they say that average teacher will impact our 3,000 students in the course of their career. So it's very important. There are some 38 lakh teachers in US that students lives by affected by their interaction. Now, unfortunate situation is that half of all of the teachers leave their profession within the first 5 years, and there are multiple reasons for that. But teachers leaving their profession, which is a peculiar situation in US, not in our country, that is what they are facing. And this is plausible as the teaching job market is expected to grow by an average of 7% each year. So their growth rate and their acquiring rate is not at all matching. So that is what they are worried about. Some data, there are some 3.152 million public schools in US, and among the teachers that teach there, 74% are female and 25 are basically male. And the student-teacher ratio is 15:1. It's slightly better than ours. We have 26:1. The majority of the teachers are, these are basically the ethnicity that they are giving. And the salary part, obviously, we cannot compare their salary with ours. In India, we have 95 lakh teachers. That is, so I think population is also 4 times higher. So obviously, the number of teachers is much higher in India than US. There were 48 lakh female teachers and 46. Oh, here it is 50-50. That is really interesting. Whereas in US, it's more females in the teaching profession. Here, average ratio is 26:1. That means for one student, there are 26 teachers. Sorry, 26 students, one teacher. The average salary for a teacher it varies hugely from 1.2 to 4.5. The Indian school education system is one of the largest in the world. 14 lakh schools, 95 lakh teachers, and 26 crore students. It's a huge system. And the statistics published by the MHRD, they say that there is a 2% decrease from 21-22 to 2021, teacher decrease in all primary to higher education. But when I look at the popular media, there's a lot of hue and cry that India has a deficit of over 1 million school teachers, UNESCO. And there is even very recently, July 31st, 2023, there are concerns about in Lok Sabha, what are you going to do with the teacher shortage? So when I was searching, I just stumbled upon another article. It's a research study, the teacher deficit part in India. What they are arguing using data from 1920, pre-corona, what they're saying is this teacher shortage issue is a myth, at least in India. So I want you to take a look at this article. It's available, free download, available in the internet. They are saying that actually teacher deficit is not a reality for India. Globally it may be, but at least for our country, it is not that reality. Okay, so because of the shortage of time, I'm not going to the details of the paper, but you can go through it. Maybe we are unnecessarily worrying about the teacher shortage. It may be globally important, but not probably nationally. Now, if you want to make this profession more attractive, well, I mean, there can be many ways or strategic approach. One part is, reality. Any person looking for a career needs a reasonably good salary. So that part should be taken care. I won't say attractive salary. Reasonably good is good enough. There should be a career guidance. So somebody who is naturally inclined to teaching, identifying them early and guiding their career is very important. Avoiding, this extra work that is loaded on teachers and focusing or empowering for them teaching. That policy decisions are important. And training, professional training. That's why I said, just not passionate teaching. It's about developing expertise teaching. You get job satisfaction. You will see that your students are actually performing. That's what you want to see finally, right? So that job satisfaction you need only when you get professional training. That's very important. And another thing is, there is no, school can bring the alumni back. Teachers see a sense of achievement. Many of your students are, directors, head of institutions, many top position, because you take the reverse. Anybody who is in the top position should have been a student at some point, right, in a school. So you bring those people back to the school campus. A teacher feel a sense of joy of teaching. So these are ways to make this profession more attractive, and list is not exhaustive. We can keep on adding it. But I would like to end my interaction with this tagline of one of the previous NEP, which is 1986 National Education Policy. There was a beautiful sentence. No nation can rise above the level of its teachers. So when I read this sentence, it was like heart was filled with, there is a word Shakespeare used, catharsis. It's something that you are doing for a nation building. Your nation depends upon your level. So it brings immense happiness as well as huge responsibility. You need to, harpen all these, abilities on day by day, and always make an attempt to become a effective teacher, efficient teacher. So with this word, let me conclude, and also let me thank the Vanavani School for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much. There was a question in the chat box. Do you think there is any correlation between teacher effectiveness and salary paid? Well, I mean, I don't think teacher effect. Once you take up this job, then obviously the salary before you take up the job. So salary part is not coming for effectiveness, but to attract somebody to teaching profession, there probably salary, because people are of different kinds. Some people say that teaching is not a normal profession. It's a very, what do you call, value-based thing. It's a noble career. So you should not look at the salary. That is one argument. But there are very pragmatic people who say, no, I have to day-to-day life. I need to get salary to run my family. So that is another way of looking at it. So getting people more into this profession, yes, salary may play a role. But once you already choose the thing, then effectiveness doesn't depend upon your salary. You can pump more money, but teaching may not be becoming effective. Teaching effectiveness comes from training. Somebody's asking, title of the book you have recommended. Yeah, it's 7 Principles of Becoming. Okay, what I will do is I will get the exact title and send to Sadish Kumar sir. He'll send you. Stephen McCoy is the author. Yes, Sandhya. Please unmute.
Jiva,
Hello.
Jiva, open பண்ணிடு.
Hello.
So 1 minute. Sir.
Yeah.
Ask Jiva to unmute. Ma.
So she has been unmuted. So
Okay.
she can raise her question if she wants.
Yeah, either you can speak. I think you're unmuted. You can go ahead. Or you can write the question in the chat box. I think the other questions, did I miss anything?
Anyone else want to ask? Yes, Sandra.
So just not a question,
Ah.
just an observation. You are talking about that there's no, we don't have to be, sense of alarm when we talk about the number of teachers in India.
Mm-hmm.
It may be the quantity. What about the quality?
Yeah, teacher shortage was the topic. So yes, you're right. I mean,
So in that sense, if you take the quality, there is a shortage.
there is
I can
only
tell you that.
there is only shortage.
Yes. That's what I just wanted to share with you.
Right.
Number,
right.
yes. Number, yes. People
Yeah.
applying.
So that
employing.
is basically, madam, the problem is, I think we are stuck. We teach the way we were taught. So
We are not moving forward.
we are not getting another model of teaching. So that is so, and the kind of things changing. Learners are changing. The learning styles are changing. So the other part is changing, but teachers are not able to change. So still,
But the new educational policy giving room for that kind of a change. But we need to accept it, no?
yeah, I would say the only way is training. I mean, we need to have real training modules for
Yes.
teachers to
That
conduct
is
the
what
class.
is.
Yeah.
The teacher training is where we are lacking.
Yes.
Really.
That is
That's where we are lacking.
that is true. So yeah, as you rightly said.
I perfectly, agree with what you said about this passionate teaching and teaching with expertise. It's a beautiful thing because many teachers, ma'am, say, I was very passionate, ma'am. It was so interesting. I enjoyed my class. It's not a question of you're enjoying the class. The students should be able to, be benefited.
Yes.
As you said, they should not in you. The emotion should
Exactly. So this is the teachers need to realize that part.
be the, yes, but there's a beautiful point about passionate. Absolutely right. That is, those passionate teachers, they get into a kind of comfort zone, saying that they are passionate, and this they don't take any efforts to move forward nor change.
Yeah, because probably in their mind they are doing perfectly fine because
And they think are very
yeah,
sincere.
yeah.
Absolutely, they are.
They
They
are
are.
sincere.
We
They are
should.
actually sincere
They are.
teachers. They are
We should
sincere.
give them the full credit
Yes,
for that.
yes.
They are sincere. They are dedicated. But that alone not enough. As you said, it is the expertise most
Yeah.
important. That is a beautiful point.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
So if the question session is over, can we move on to the next one, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your enlightening discourse and question and answer session and sharing your incredible insights and expertise, especially on what is expected and the challenges faced by teachers today, and and how to initiate creativity in students and focus on the formative assessment and meta thinking and all the ideas that you have given. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I'm signing off.
Gratitude is the most exquisite form of courtesy. As we draw this exceptional webinar to a close, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of Vanavani. First and foremost, our heartfelt gratitude goes out to our distinguished chief guest, Professor Edamana Prasad, for gracing this event with your presence and for your enlightening words that you have enriched our mind. We extend a sincere appreciation to our chairman, Professor S.P. Danavel, and our secretary, Sri Raman Kumar, in their absentia, and the Department of Computer Science, IITM, for their unwavering support in organizing this event. A profound thanks to our principal, Mr. M. Satish Kumar, and Vice Principal, Mrs. Princey Tom, for their exceptional guidance. To our devoted and tireless teachers, your commitment to nurturing the next generation is truly commendable. We extend our gratitude for joining us today and making this event a memorable one. I would also like to extend our sincere gratitude to our supporting staff for helping us in every step of the way in putting together this wonderful webinar. Once again, thank you for being a part of this significant celebration of educators, and we look forward to a brighter future shaped by the wisdom and guidance of our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Zero,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Sir.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you, sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Jiva.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am.